The Emerald Vale, your very first stop in your journey through the Outer Worlds. Although a very beautiful place, the Vale is home to several groups of marauders, dangerous wildlife, and the town of Edgewater. Edgewater is a small town that's not in the best shape when you first discover it. Many of its people are sick and dying, and those who are not sick are basically being worked to death. And the company that owns the town, Spacer's Choice, has pretty much abandoned the town. To make matters worse, not too long before you discovered the town, a large group of people just got fed up with the extreme conditions and decided to leave. I guess they figured they can live better outside of the town, thus weakening the town even more. But all is not lost for the town of Edgewater. Because now that the player character is here, the game gives us a few choices that we can make that will either improve or hinder Edgewater. Today, I am going to discuss which choice I feel is the best choice for everyone that lives in Edgewater. So, what are the choices that we can make? Well, the reason we're even in Edgewater is that we're looking for a part for our ship, the power regulator. If we ask around about it, we are directed to talk to the town head, Reed Thompson. Once we get there, Thompson says, "Yeah, I know where you can get one, but there's a catch."
There's a power regulator in the old botanical lab. It's mostly abandoned, so all that power is being squandered. Go down to the geothermal plant. Reroute power from the botanical district over to us. Once their power's shut down, you can have their regulator and be along on your way. I was not entirely sure how to tell you this. The botanical labs are not legally inhabited, but there are people who live there. The people living in the botanical labs, they're deserters, former workers. I need them back at their posts. I need them to come home. My hope is that by cutting off their power, you will convince those deserters to come back to town. Before you go to the plant, I want you to stop by the botanical lab. Speak to their leader, Adelaide. Tell her the power's about to go, and that it's time her band of deserters came back to town.
So, Reed wants us to take the power from the deserters' camp and send it back to Edgewater, thus making the deserters have to come back to town. This is our first choice. What's our second? Well, if we go to the deserter camp and talk to Adelaide, telling her what Reed plans to do, she offers up a counter to Reed's idea.
Cannery's got a regulator. You want ship parts, you ought to rip them out of the cannery's guts and leave us be. If you're going down to the plant, you should divert power away from Edgewater and toward our end of the grid. Think about it. You'd be liberating an entire town from a lifetime of service to that odious cannery. Seems the sort of thing a hero would do. Life in Edgewater grinds to a halt. The cannery shuts down, workers desert in droves, and our own little camp grows and thrives.
So, we have two choices. We can either side with Reed, or we can side with Adelaide. But which choice is the best choice for all the people in Edgewater? Well, before we can answer that, we need to first break down the pros and cons of each choice. First, let's take a look at where each choice will have the bulk of people living. Now, if we side with Reed, everyone will be staying at Edgewater. Now, although it has its problems, it still is a fully developed town. People have places to stay, there's houses, there's apartments, there's developments, but most importantly, there's a security force, a full security force, and a wall that surrounds the town. Now, we're in a frontier country here. There's nothing but marauders and wild animals surrounding everywhere. You're going to need a safe place to be able to sleep and stay. Not to mention that Edgewater is still a Spacer's Choice town, so Spacer's Choice, although they're not that important to them, still send small shipments every now and then. It's not a crazy amount, but it's something that if you know what to do, or if you know how to work together, you should be able to survive pretty decently in this town. But what about Adelaide? Where do we stay if we fully side with her? Now here is our first big con when it comes to fully siding with Adelaide. You see, this camp, it's way too small. There's no way it can hold everyone from Edgewater. It doesn't have the infrastructure. Remember, it's just a lab that they found and repurposed into a small settlement. You know what though? Adelaide knows this. If you fully side with her and convert the power from the town to here, she says thanks, but we'll be turning away most of the town because we don't have the size to hold everybody. Another thing that makes this a con is that there is no security. There's no security force. There's no wall that surrounds them. Yeah, they're in a valley that's kind of surrounded by big, large rock structures, but it still has a huge gap in the front of it where anything can get in and out. In fact, the one guard that the camp has manages to lose one of the people staying there and can send you on a mission to go get them. So it's not exactly the best place for everybody to live from Edgewater. So that's definitely a con when it comes to fully siding with Adelaide. But now that we've looked at the locations, let's look at the two individuals that may be leading the town of Edgewater. Now when it comes to leadership, both Adelaide and Reed have problems. With Reed, he's a company man through and through. All he focuses on is boosting the town's productivity so they become more valuable in the eyes of Spacer's Choice. This causes him to ignore key problems with the town because he is so focused on productivity. We're talking serious issues here, like the fact that the whole entire town is mentally and physically exhausted from all the overwork. Not to mention the fact that there's a deadly plague, a disease that's going around killing people in the town. When you confront Reeves about all this, he just keeps saying, nah, the only way we're going to make it is to keep working. Just keep working harder. That's going to solve all these problems. That's going to cure this plague. Everybody working even harder. Which makes no sense, especially when we find out later on down the line that it's coming from their food. You see, the main source of income for the town is the salt tuna factory, or cannery. Problem is, they're out of salt tuna meat, so what are they putting in there? Well, if you walk around the cannery, you'll find that they have tons of sprat bodies everywhere, and it looks like they're processing them. Sprats are the outer world version of rats. Rats are rodents, so sprats are rodents, which means they'll carry diseases. This is why people are getting sick. But Reed doesn't pay attention to this because all he's focusing on is keeping that production up. Gotta keep the production going, no matter what. Even though we're losing people, that's okay, as long as the key people that keep the cannery going are still alive. We're good. Just keep that production going. Now, this isn't to say that Reed is a bad person. I don't believe he's a bad person. I just believe he has the wrong focus. In fact, if you get the deserters to come back, he'll admit that yes, he has been working them too hard and that he's going to work with them more moving forward now with them being back. Hopefully able to keep them there and not deserting. So he's not bad. He's just focused in the wrong spot. But what about Adelaide? How does she stack up as a good leader? Well, at first, pretty good. She realizes that the town is overworked and that working everybody to death to please Spacer's Choice is a waste of effort. Spacer's Choice has basically abandoned them because they are not big enough, they're not producing enough, they're not an asset to them. So pushing everyone so hard just to please them is not necessary. She also recognizes the dangers of the plague. In fact, she's the one that figures out that it's coming from their food. She even comes up with a cure. By growing her own food in her camp, she's able to produce fresh vegetables and fruits, which is what people can eat apart from just the meat from the cannery. As a result of this, no one in her camp has the plague. So she definitely has a bunch of positives when it comes to her leadership, but she does have a negative. She has a strong hatred for Spacer's Choice. I mean, it's so strong that she's willing to let the whole entire town of Edgewater be shut down just because it's a Spacer's Choice town. Now, this all stems from the fact that when the plague first popped up, her son caught it, and he died later because Reeds refused to treat him, saying that he wasn't important enough. This was Reed following company policy. Company policy states that if you're not important, you don't get medical care. In fact, if you get sick, that automatically makes you not important. So it's really messed up company policy. So she has the right to be angry, but to get so angry that she's willing to hurt the other people in Edgewater, that's a little extreme. Remember, she knows she doesn't have the space for everyone at her camp. So if she does shut down the town, people are going to die. We already discovered that. So that is a mark towards her leadership. But even with that, she still stacks up higher than Reed's. Okay, so it's clear that the best place for everybody to live is the town of Edgewater. And the best leader for everyone is Adelaide. So, is there a choice where we can combine those two things? Yes, there is. If we go to the power plant and convert the power back to Edgewater, then go to Adelaide's camp and try to convince her to come back to Edgewater, she'll tell us that she will not come back unless Reed steps down from leadership. Now, this is not too hard to do. As long as we have the persuasion skill high enough, we can convince him by telling him the facts. He's not a good leader. There's lots of big issues going on in the town that he hasn't been able to handle that Adelaide can. Namely, the plague disease that's killing everyone. She has a cure, and he doesn't. If you tell him that, he willingly steps down, allowing Adelaide to take over. This, I feel, is truly the best option for the people of Edgewater. Think about it. They get more power this way. All the deserters come back, so now their workforce is stronger. But most importantly, they now have a cure for the plague. This plague disease that's killing everyone was never fully taken serious by Reeds. He always kept putting it on the back burners, mainly because the workforce was still somewhat alive. They could still produce, so it didn't matter that this plague was killing everyone as long as he had enough people to keep on producing. Adelaide's different. She's focusing on the health and well-being of the town. In fact, when she does take over, she wants to shut down the cannery and turn it into a giant greenhouse, providing food for the whole entire area and getting rid of the plague all at once. This is totally the better option than just leaving Reed in charge to let everybody slowly die. This is the choice that I made in my main playthrough of The Outer Worlds. But what about you? What choice did you make while dealing with Edgewater? Please tell us in the comment section down below. But that's going to end our video. I really hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like, share, and subscribe. Also, please hit that notification button. It really helps the channel grow. Also, it lets you know when our next video comes out. Please stick with us because we have a long journey still to go in our journey through the Outer Worlds, and we really hope you guys will join us. But until next video, I'm Average Arcader. Have a nice day.